Autumn is usually a season of beauty and renewal, but for us, it became a chilling chapter of terror. The day we moved into the grand old colonial revival mansion, with its towering spires and expansive grounds, was a day painted in the rich colors of fall. Leaves rustled beneath our feet, their crimson and amber hues contrasting with the pale blue sky. The bidding for this house had been intense, which wasn't surprising given its charm and spaciousness. The old mansion, while majestic, carried an air of melancholy. Its walls, aged with time, hid secrets within their layers, and the creaking floorboards and vintage wallpaper seemed to moan with memories. We were drawn to its old-world charm, the intricate woodwork, and the tales each brick could tell. We thought this only added to its allure. Our new home held the promise of many happy memories. However, the initial appeal was swiftly overshadowed by the neighborhood's icy reception. Curt nods replaced warm greetings, and hushed conversations fell silent as we passed by walking our dog. The atmosphere was thick with unsaid words and veiled warnings. Instead of the expected friendly chats or casual greetings, they seemed hesitant, their eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and pity. One cold evening, a few weeks after our move, our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Hawthorne, visited us. The weight of years and knowledge was evident in her eyes. She hesitated for a moment before delving into a tragic tale from many years ago. She felt it was her duty to unveil the mansion's dark past, a story that had been buried for too long. The house was once the proud residence of a businessman named I.H. Miller. His genius was unparalleled, especially evident in a household appliance, the crock-pot, he had brought to the open market, one that promised to revolutionize daily life and is still found in nearly every home to this day. The crock-pot was revolutionary for its time and promised to make domestic life simpler and more efficient. Miller and his inventor, Irving Naxon, had spent years perfecting it, and when they finally released it to the public, it became an instant hit. But as the crock-pot gained popularity, it also attracted envy, especially from a source closest to Miller, his very own grandson. Their relationship was one marred by bitterness. Miller's grandson, tormented by his own failures and demons, the looming shadow of his grandfather's success, grew increasingly resentful. This festering animosity culminated in a horrifying act one autumn night. Using a brass lamp, the grandson unleashed his rage, brutally bludgeoned to death his grandfather, ending the life of the man who had given him everything. Mrs. Hawthorne's voice wavered as she recounted how the mansion had never been the same since that sinister night. Families that moved in spoke of an oppressive atmosphere, of cold spots appearing out of nowhere, of inexplicable mechanical sounds echoing through the vast halls. As days turned to nights, the truth of her words became our haunting reality. An icy aura enveloped the mansion, especially as dusk approached. We would often hear the faint hum of machinery, even though all appliances were turned off. Footsteps echoed in the corridors, only to vanish when investigated. One night stands out vividly. I was awakened by a scorched scent emanating from the basement. Mustered by a mix of fear and curiosity, I ventured downstairs. The basement, bathed in an eerie moonlight filtering through a cracked window, was freezing. In the center, to my horror, stood Miller's crock-pot, piping hot, though no power source was connected. Next to it was a faded portrait in a shattered frame of Miller, his eyes seemingly filled with tears of anguish. This was just the beginning of a series of increasingly terrifying events. We would often find rooms in disarray, as though someone had searched them frantically. A malevolent presence seemed to be always watching, its gaze cold and vengeful. Desperate for a solution, we enlisted the help of a renowned paranormal expert. His initial calm demeanor turned grave as he spent a night in the mansion. He deduced that Miller's spirit was trapped, bound by the pain of betrayal and the violent nature of his demise, and he was trying to communicate, perhaps to find peace, using the very device that had led to his downfall. The final straw was the most chilling of all. One night, as a storm raged outside, the entire mansion plunged into darkness. When the lights flickered back, there stood an apparition of Miller at the foot of our bed. His face, contorted in pain and anger, stared at us, before vanishing into the cold night. Sleep-deprived and mentally exhausted, we realized we couldn't stay any longer. The mansion, with its haunting beauty and tragic past, was too heavy a burden to bear. As we left, the autumn leaves seemed to whisper a mournful goodbye, a reminder of the chilling events that had transpired. And though we tried to move on, the memories of that mansion and its anguished spirit continued to haunt our dreams, serving as a grim testament to the lasting scars of betrayal and tragedy.